My family banned me from New Year's Eve. My own mother told me not to come because I made everyone uncomfortable. So I spent midnight alone in my apartment, watching fireworks through the window. But at 12:15 a.m., my phone rang. My brother was panicking, and the first thing he said was, the brother was panicking, and the first thing he said was, "What did you do?" Dad just saw the news and now he can't breathe. Because while my family was celebrating without me, the entire world had just discovered something about me. Something they never believed was possible. My name is Sophie. I'm 31 years old, and the night my family banned me from New Year's Eve was the same night they found out I had become a billionaire. But they didn't hear it from me. But they didn't hear it from me. They heard it from the news. And by the time my brother called me at 12:15 a.m., my father could barely breathe. The whole thing started with a phone call earlier that afternoon. It was around 4 o'clock. I remember because I had just finished answering emails and was standing in my kitchen, staring at the city through the window while my coffee slowly went cold. New Year's Eve had always been a family event for us. No exceptions. No excuses. Every year since I was a child, we gathered at my parents' house. The same living room, the same old couch, the same awkward countdown at midnight, while my mom insisted on taking blurry photos of everyone holding plastic champagne glasses. It was messy, loud, sometimes annoying, but it was ours. So when my phone lit up with Mom, I assumed she was calling to ask what time I'd arrive. Instead, the first thing she said was, "Sophie, I think it's better if you don't come tonight." Her voice was calm, almost too calm, the kind of tone someone uses when discussing something ordinary, like whether to bring a jacket because it might rain. For a moment, I thought I misunderstood. "Don't come." "Where?" I asked. "To New Year's Eve," she said. There was a brief pause, like she was choosing her words carefully. "Your father and I talked about it. We think it's best." Best. Such a simple word, but something about the way she said, it made my chest tighten. I waited for her to explain. Maybe the house was full. Maybe someone was sick. Maybe something had happened that I didn't know about. Instead, she said the sentence that still echoes in my head. "You'll just make everyone uncomfortable." Just like that. No anger. No apology. Just a quiet statement of fact. I didn't speak for a moment. I could hear faint sounds through the phone. My father's voice somewhere in the background, the clinking of dishes, the television playing softly. Normal sounds. Normal life. Except suddenly I wasn't part of it. "What do you mean?" I finally asked. My mother sighed softly, like this conversation was exhausting her. "Sophie, you know how things get when you start talking about your projects," she said caprally. "My work," I replied. "Yes," she said carefully. "Your work." There was another pause. "We just want a peaceful evening. Your uncle will be here, and Daniel and his wife are bringing friends. We don't want any awkward conversations." Awkward conversations. I almost laughed. Because in my family, that phrase had become code for something else entirely. It meant don't challenge us. Don't talk about things we don't understand. Don't remind us that your life doesn't follow the path we expected. "You're saying my presence will ruin the evening," I said quietly. "That's not what I said," my mother replied quickly. But of course, it was exactly what she had said, just wrapped in softer words. For a few seconds, I considered arguing. I could already feel the old frustration rising in my chest. The same arguments we'd had for years. The same cycle of criticism, defense, and disappointment. But I knew how it would end. My parents would insist they were only concerned. Daniel would make a sarcastic comment, and by the end of the conversation, somehow I would be the one apologizing. So instead, I said the simplest thing I could. "Okay." There was silence on the other end of the line. Maybe my mother expected me to fight. Maybe she expected tears. But after years of being misunderstood, you learn something important. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. "All right then," she said after a moment. "Take care tonight." Take care tonight. And just like that, the call ended. I lowered the phone slowly and stared at the wall in front of me. It felt strange. Not dramatic, not explosive, just quiet, like someone had gently closed a door. Outside my apartment window, the city was already preparing for the night. Outside my apartment window. Cars moved slowly through traffic. People hurried down the sidewalks carrying grocery bags, party decorations, and bottles of champagne. From somewhere below, music drifted up from a bar already crowded with early celebrations. The entire city seemed alive with excitement, but inside my apartment everything felt still. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time after that call, not crying, not angry, just thinking. Because the truth was, this moment hadn't come out of nowhere. My family didn't suddenly decide I made them uncomfortable. This had been building for years. In my family, life was supposed to follow a very specific path, a safe one, a predictable one. My parents believed in stability above everything else. Good education, respectable careers, careful decisions, nothing risky, nothing uncertain. My older brother Daniel followed that path perfectly. Straight A student, business degree, corporate job by 23, promotion by 27, married by 30, a house in a quiet suburb with a small backyard and 2 cars in the driveway. The kind of life that made my parents proud. The kind of life they understood. Daniel never challenged expectations, never surprised anyone, never made people uncomfortable. And then there was me. I had always been different. Not rebellious, exactly. Just curious. I asked too many questions. I liked ideas more than routines. While my brother focused on climbing the ladder, I spent my time thinking about how ladders were built in the first place. For years, my parents assumed I would grow out of it. They believed eventually I would settle into something sensible, something stable. For a while, I tried. After college, I got a good job, a respectable one. Nice salary, reliable hours, the kind of position my parents proudly mentioned to relatives during holiday dinners. For 2 years, I lived exactly the life they expected. But something inside me always felt wrong, like I was wearing someone else's clothes. Everything fit, technically, but it didn't feel like mine. And then when I was 26, I did something my family never expected. I quit. No backup job, no guarantee of income. Just savings, an idea, and a belief that I could build something bigger. The night I told my parents was the first time I saw real panic in their eyes. "What do you mean you quit?" my father asked slowly. "I'm starting a company," I said. The silence that followed felt heavy. My mother looked at my father. My father looked at Daniel, and Daniel leaned back in his chair like he was about to watch something entertaining. "With what money?" my father asked. "My savings. And when those run out, I'll figure it out." Daniel laughed quietly. "You mean you'll come back asking for help?" I ignored him. "It's a good idea," I continued. "I've been working on it for months." "What kind of business?" my mother asked. "What kind of business?" my mother asked. When I explained, they listened politely. But I could see the doubt in their faces. They didn't believe in the idea. Not even a little. "You're being unrealistic," my father finally said. "You think you're smarter than everyone else," Daniel added. My mother tried to soften the moment. "We are just worried about you." But in my family, worry always sounded a lot like criticism. From that moment on, every family dinner turned into an interrogation. "How's the business doing? Are you making any money yet? What's your plan when this fails?" At first, I tried to explain, tried to share progress, but they never asked about the vision. Only about the risks. Only about the possibility of failure. Eventually, the comments turned into jokes. "So how's the imaginary company? Have you made your first dollar yet? You know most businesses collapse, right?" They laughed when they said it. But the message was clear. They had already decided how my story would end, and once people decide you're going to fail, they stop listening to anything that suggests otherwise. Over the next few years, my company slowly started growing. At first, it was small, one client, then 3, then 10. Then suddenly, investors were interested. But every time I tried to share something exciting with my family, the reaction was always the same: dismissive, uninterested, uncomfortable. "You talk about this stuff like it's bigger than it really is," Daniel once told me. "It makes people uncomfortable." That word again. Uncomfortable. Eventually, I stopped trying to explain. If they asked how work was going, I just said, "Fine." It was easier that way. Less exhausting. Less disappointing. And slowly I started showing up to family dinners less often. Not out of anger, just fatigue. But apparently that made things worse too. When I didn't come, they said I was acting superior. When I did come, they said my presence changed the mood. There was no version of me that seemed acceptable. So when my mother told me not to come to New Year's Eve, I wasn't shocked, still hurt, but not shocked. That night, I stayed in my apartment. The lights off, the TV muted, watching fireworks through the window like they belonged to another world. I poured myself a glass of cheap champagne and stood barefoot on the kitchen floor. From outside, distant voices shouted the countdown. 10, 8. I whispered the E numbers quietly to myself. 3, 2, 1. Cheers exploded across the city. Fireworks burst across the sky, and I lifted my glass toward the empty room. Happy New Year, I said softly. For a moment, I told myself I was fine with it. That success sometimes meant walking alone. But if I'm honest, it hurt more than I expected. Because success feels strangely lonely when the people you want to share it with refuse to see it. Then my phone rang, 12:15 a.m. The name on the screen said Daniel. My brother never called late, especially not on New Year's Eve. Something was wrong. I answered immediately. Hello? And his breathing was sharp, uneven, panicked. Sophie, he said. What did you do? My heart skipped. What are you talking about? Dad just saw the news, he said. Then there was a pause, and the sentence that changed everything. Now he can't breathe. My grip tightened on the phone. What news? But deep down, I already knew. Because earlier that same day, the world had just announced something my family never believed was possible. And in a matter of minutes, their entire understanding of me was about to collapse.